Hello everyone, and welcome back to the extra videos for Let's Play the Journeyman Project 2, Buried in Time. Today we're looking at the Environ system and all of its information. As the music skips because it keeps kind of having to load new sound effects. And old sound effects! It's great! Now the first thing we can actually pick up is an extra item that actually has, as far as I know, no purpose. It's a remote control which we can't actually use and have no reason to use. Also, the batteries are dead, and I never found a replacement for it, so it's just kind of a thing you can pick up and have in your inventory to clog up space. But enough about that. Let's get on to what we're in here for. This thing. It looks like we can put something in here, however we don't have anything at the moment. So let's look at the Environ system first. Now if you remember from the last game, the Environ system was really just like a demonstration of what they were able to do and how... You remember how cool it was? It was amazing! But here it's kind of a passing thought. It definitely shows that Presto was moving away from doing stuff like this and actually moving on to using their resources to make more of a game. Because the Environ system only has 3 pictures. Very nice pictures, I must say, but it's kind of a disappointment. Because there's not even cool music that can be put in here. It's rather sad that way. But yeah, that's kind of it with the Environ system. There's not really much else it can do. And the remote control doesn't do anything. But with that, let's look at the meat of the Environ system. Welcome to the Interactive News Network. This is where you're going to get a big, huge dump of extra information, covered in 4 stories that we're able to look at. This video will only be looking at Agent 5 Breaks House Arrest because there's tons of information on that story. And a lot of extra stuff too. So let's jump in.
INN will return after word from our sponsor.
The soon-to-be-released Geno, A Fond Remembrance, is Volume 4 of G-Tech's Rock Through the Ages collection. Never before has there been a video collection that captures the many moods of Geno Andrews. You'll hear the melancholy Geno.
So many songs about the rain.
The rebellious Geno.
Selling yourself, set a price to pay. When you're selling yourself, make it somewhere.
Yes, the carefree Geno.
It's been my dream to be a traveler of sorts, to visit all the kinds.
And of course, the lovesick Geno.
A song for her is all she wants from me.
All of his chart-topping videos are here, brought back from the archives of the past and completely remastered in stunning 4D sound. In fact, Geno, A Fond Remembrance is the most complete collection of Geno's hits ever compiled on one EC. Call our toll-free ShopNet line now and receive a free sample from the upcoming EC that's bound to be an instant classic. Geno, A Fond Remembrance.
So, 3 of the 4 news stories have a commercial that plays before it. Of course, we watched 2 in the first video. This is the 3rd commercial that has an extra thing that I will be picking up at the end of the Environ system session. Because it has an order code for a song, which I will be looking at in its own separate video. Let's get on to the news story, shall we?
The ongoing saga of Gage Blackwood took a frightening twist this morning when the agent of the Deep Time Unit broke house arrest to jump 9 years back in time. Fortunately, the illicit time jump was detected, and he was immediately apprehended by Agent 8 of the Temporal Protectorate. Although it's still not clear how and why Blackwood obtained the TSA jumpsuit, Temporal Security Agency officials did say that no distortion ripples have yet been detected, and that there is no reason whatsoever to believe that Blackwood has altered history in any way. Our Lisa Long has a report from TSA Administrative Headquarters.
Yep, just keep looking that way, Mark Johnson. It's fine.
In a strange turn of events that can only be described as unimaginable, the highly decorated Gage Blackwood, better known as Agent 5 of the Deep Time Unit, has been arrested and put on trial for the crime of historical sabotage. We apologize for the lack of trial footage, but because of the sensitive nature of the material being presented, no recording equipment has been allowed into the tribunal wing of the United Ministry Complex where the trial is being held. The drama unfolded 3 weeks ago when Agent 2 of the Temporal Protectorate discovered 4 distortion ripples while conducting an unscheduled historical scan. As it turned out, the dates of the ripples exactly coincided with times to which Agent 5 had been sent for research purposes. The agent immediately contacted his supervisors, and on their orders, 3 agents were sent to apprehend Agent 5, who offered no resistance. Later that day, more evidence was found in Blackwood's locker, suggesting that he had disobeyed Temporal Security Agency directives for personal gain. Unless deemed absolutely necessary, the TSA will not send agents to investigate or restore the distortions, as any further tampering with history may cause adverse effects, possibly even turning the ripples into full reality distortion waves.
Alright, so there's some information of what's going on and what we actually saw in the intro. That is kind of an interesting question of how Gage got the suit in the first place, but that was kind of cleared up that the guy in the third message in the answering machine got it, who was the chief technician. We'll get his name later. Anyway, we have some extra stuff to look at.
Prosecuting attorney Phil Stevens alleges that Agent 5 intentionally altered the past in 4 of the 10 time zones to which he had been sent for research purposes, his only apparent motive being personal gain. In so doing, Agent 5 would have knowingly violated Temporal Security Agency ethics, as well as the law. As temporal sabotage in any form is considered the worst possible crime against humanity, Stevens is aiming for the maximum allowable sentence.
The only motive is personal gain? That's not a lot of evidence to go on in terms of messing with time and also Gage's background.
The burden of proof lies on the prosecution. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Gage Blackwood was responsible for the distortion ripples. There is strong evidence working against Blackwood, including both computer records that place him at the altered historical locations and contraband that was discovered in his locker. But the evidence alone is not enough to ensure a conviction. With this in mind, prosecuting attorney Stevens has directed his questioning toward eliminating other possible explanations for the ripples.
It's true that the computer records would place him there because those were his time zone. Those were his time locations that he was going to. The contraband in his locker, we can believe that, but we really don't have any reason for Gage to be taking anything from him. From that, it would be against ethics, and he knows not to do that.
Witnesses for the prosecution have included Agent 2 of the Temporal Protectorate, the TSA's chief technician, and the designer of the circuitry for the jumpsuit.
Now, it says go forward, but of course, we're going to go back and look at all these hyperlinks. Hypertext, yeah! There's a lot of extra information within the hypertext in terms of extra information, very small tidbits to rather large tidbits about extra things. Things that you probably already know about as well. Of course, they lead to tons of other categories as well. For all cases in terms of news stories and extra blurbs such as this, please pause the video and read it yourself if you really want to, because I'm not going to be sitting here forever.
Prosecuting attorney, the burden of proof.
Now, one thing that Lisa Long, Ace Reporter, did mention is the distortion ripples, quote. The only thing that we were really worried about with the first game was temporal rips. But apparently now there's a very minor form of time manipulation, which includes distortion ripples, which don't actually mess with history the same way that temporal rips do, which is now termed reality distortion waves, which is kind of what we were dealing with the first game, where if we don't do something about what happened at this point in time, the entire future after that point is going to be changed drastically. Or face uncreation. That was a good death. Remember that?
The burden of proof lies on the witnesses for the prosecution.
Maybe more information, or probably the same information about the Deep Time Unit. It's a little bit more redundant when you can access the same kind of information in the files biochip, but that's kind of what you'd expect from here. And the Deep Time Unit is only 2 years old, apparently. And of course they put hypertext for what seems to be two different things, the Temporal Security Agency and the TSA, but a lot of stuff leads to the same information that we already saw. Jumpsuit. And then, of course, there's the Pegasus, which I believe is the same exact information that you get from the first, like, the files biochip, so there's kind of that. And then, of course, the good old symbiotree, which we were admitted into. I think that's everything.
Witnesses for the prosecution.
Because that just goes back to the jumpsuit.
Witnesses
Alright,
for the
let's go on to the people. The prosecution includes Agent 2, which, I did mention in the Files by Chip video that he was one of the 4 agents that actually are important. And Agent 2 is probably the least, because, or I guess it's debatable between Agent 2 and 8. If you're really interested, then debate it, but this is the only blurb that you really get about Agent 2 actually doing anything, because he was the one who noticed the ripples. He did the manual scan. He even took Gage out of Tahiti. God. Some small information about the United Ministry Complex. That's the same, that's the same. It seems like it would have extra information, but it doesn't. Then we have the Chief Technician. And then, of course, we get information on the chronologue scanners, which is what the temporal ripples were detected on. They look for time jumps that were taken and also distortions. And the one below it leads to the exact same thing. Jesus. Alright. And then there's the circuitry designer. This is Margaret Chow. Margene? Margene Chow. Alrighty. And of course, the computer records, which showed that jumps were done, and place Gage right at the historical locations. And the physical evidence. What was actually found in the locker? One valuable but not historically significant object from each of the 4. So this is where we get more information, including Chichen Itza. So this is more information if you're wanting to really understand where you're actually going. So we're going to the Mayan city of Chichen Itza. And you can see wonderful pictures like the El Castillo. If you're really wanting more information on Mayan civilization, there you go. A race of Indians. Now it also mentions the specific civilization of Mayans, which was the Toltec. We'll get more into information of that when we're actually going to Chichen Itza. And of course, mythology if you're interested in that, like Ixamna. I think that's all we can look at with this information about the Mayans, but we will get more information later on. Next time zone we're going to is Chateau Gaillard, which I want to say that this picture looks like it's supposed to be what the present day of the game is supposed to look like, because Chateau Gaillard is deteriorating, of course, but it looks like they just put a massive bubble over top of it in order to preserve it. Of course, we'll get into this much more detail when we actually go to the time zone. We do get a lot of information on the specific people who were involved or who were there at the time, like Richard Lionhearted, Henry II. And you also get to see more wonderful pictures. Eleanor of Aquitaine. Good old King John. Is that it? Oh wait, no, and you also get information on the Crusades as well, because you can connect Richard the Lionhearted and Philip Augustus with the Third Crusade. Of course. It even says so here. So why am I talking? Oop. Hello. Pretty sure I didn't get Philip Augustus's information. Third location, of course, we're going to Leonardo da Vinci's studio, of all places. This has the least amount of information, I think, out of all the time zones. At least historically, anyways. There was one more thing. Verrocchio, there we go. A little bit more about Andrea del Verrocchio. And then the final one, which the developers went completely creative on, is, of course, Kenneth Farnstein, because we are going to at least one place that involves time that hasn't actually happened yet in the real world. So they didn't have to do any historical research for it. They could just write whatever they want. Yeah, a scientist and wonderful artist as well. Incredibly rich and purchased Amarax himself in order to go out and, yeah, Farnstein left pretty much civilization as we know it. I keep forgetting that apparently Farnstein did live by himself on the Amarak station. I really want to say that someone else was with, like other people were with him, but no, it was a self-sufficient station. But yeah, there's just tons of information. Of course, everybody forgot about him, so when the meteor shower hit his station, nobody knew. But then we get information on biotechnology, which connects to the biochips and SoftWeb. I'll go back to those once I'm done looking at pretty much Farnstein's biography here. Of course, it also talks about the computer that Farnstein also made as well, that died along with him when the power went out. Go back, we get biotechnology. Neurosynaptic polymer gel. It's what the future could look like. It's amazing. Yes, Neuromass, and also looks at his Self-Here Life series of interactive sculptures, which we'll be learning about more very soon. And finally, the SoftWeb. You could kind of connect it to artificial intelligence, but in a much more advanced way. I think that's everything for the physical evidence, and now we get to go on to the defense. Right! Sheesh.
In the absence of an alibi or any evidence proving Agent 5's innocence, defense attorney Sandra Gallagher will be setting out to show, through the testimony of character witnesses, that it is not likely Mr. Blackwood committed the crime. If the defense can elicit some doubt of Blackwood's guilt, he will go free. Witnesses for the defense will include Agent 3 of the Deep Time Unit, Agent 8 of the Temporal Protectorate, the Commissioner of the Temporal Security Agency, and Agent 5 himself.
Which is kind of what Mark Johnson's message on the answering machine was kind of talking about. We're able to defend ourselves, and that's what he was kind of looking for, was to tell our side of the story. It won't really help now, because we broke house arrest, you know, but...
The defense has not yet had the opportunity to present its case. However, we have contacted both the Chief Technician and Commissioner of the TSA to ask them their feelings on the arrest of Gage Blackwood. Neither Agent 3 of the Temporal Security Agency nor Mr. Blackwood could be reached for comment.
Now, of course, it's easily understandable why we're not able to be reached, but why is Agent 3 not able to be reached either?
In the absence of an alibi...
Yeah, there's nothing else here, so let's go on to the interviews. We got to actually listen to the Commissioner and Chief Technician interviews, because they were caught by the media.
With us now is William Daughton, the TSA Chief Technician. He joins us live from the Temporal Security Agency Administrative Headquarters. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Daughton.
Thank you, Mark.
You've known Gage Blackwood for many years, and I understand that the two of you are good friends. Do you think he's guilty?
Absolutely not. The thought that he could be guilty never even crossed my mind. I mean, friend or no, here you've got someone who's dedicated his whole life to protecting history and now stands accused of violating it. That's ridiculous. And if you don't believe me, look at his record. The man's a decorated hero. You can't overlook that fact just because it doesn't fit neatly into the story the prosecution's trying to sell.
Isn't it true you testified that no one else made a time jump to any of the altered historical locations?
No, actually I testified the scanners didn't register anyone making a time jump to those locations. But computers are only as intelligent as their human programmers. Now, I believe it's possible that someone could have shadowed Agent 5's jumps. If a second time traveler were to make a jump within a few seconds of the first and to the same location, the chronolog scanners probably wouldn't recognize it as a second jump.
Have you been able to test this theory?
No, not yet. It's too dangerous. If two people were to travel through the same null time tunnel and land in the exact same place, well, their matter would mix, and that would kill them.
And you believe that someone found a way around this?
It's possible, yes.
Okay, well, thank you for your insights, Mr. Daughton.
The guy playing Mark Johnson just kind of kills me because he really tries to be interested in what William Daughton's trying to say. Kind of like a lot of what you're probably trying to be interested in what is being said here either. Anyways, Commissioner also has something to say.
I have with me now Commissioner Jack Baldwin of the Temporal Security Agency, who's coming to us live from TSA Administrative Headquarters. Commissioner, thank you for joining us. Now, the first and most obvious question is, are you confident in your arrest of Gage Blackwood as the perpetrator of this crime?
We had to arrest Agent 5 because of the evidence, not because we think he did it. There was an obvious transgression. Someone was responsible for it, so we arrested the person to whom the evidence pointed. Now it's up to the courts to determine whether or not he's guilty.
So you believe he's innocent?
Absolutely. I've known Gage ever since he joined the TSA. In fact, I'm the one who recruited him. Gage Blackwood is a member of an endangered species. Gage Blackwood is a hero. He has put his life on the line many times to prevent this exact thing from happening. There's absolutely no way he would have abused his position at the risk of a single life, let alone history as we know it. Now, it just doesn't make sense.
Mr. Blackwood has been an agent for quite a while now, 13 years, I believe. Is it possible that the temptation just became too great for him to bear?
No. Gage is as committed to his duty now as he was back when he apprehended Elliot Sinclair. He was, and he is, our finest agent.
Okay, let's assume for a minute that he did do it. Knowing that he would be facing life imprisonment on Vega Thalon, do you feel that he would plead guilty?
First of all, it's a moot point because he didn't do it. But, presuming he did, knowing Gage, I'd say he had a damn good reason. And he would have confessed immediately. He wouldn't have pretended innocence, not for 1 minute. Bottom line, Gage Blackwood is no criminal. Gage Blackwood is a hero.
Okay, Commissioner, it looks like we're out of time. Thank you.
The Commissioner almost puts blinding trust into Gage, and that is a smirky smirk. It also looked like Jack also had something else he wanted to say, but was cut off. Oh well. Finally, an editorial.
If Blackwood is indeed guilty, he has altered more than just the past. The future, too, will likely feel the results of his actions. The Deep Time Unit will probably be discontinued before ever realizing its full potential. But there is an even greater issue at stake. That is whether the Temporal Security Agency itself is more of a risk than a safety measure. Many feel that it should be shut down and everything related to time travel destroyed. Others argue that the technology has already been invented, so there's nothing stopping it from being reinvented, for the wrong reasons. So in their opinion, the Temporal Security Agency must remain operational to safeguard against future acts of historical sabotage.
And that is probably that's probably the most interesting point of this entire game to me. The idea that time travel as a realistic thing and what to do about it. Which actually brings us into our second headline story, which we will cover next time because this video has been going on for far too long with all the extra information that has been going on. See you next time, everyone.